All right. Well, hi, folks, and welcome to Citrix DaaS Disaster Recovery. Today's awesome webinar is sponsored by Nutanix and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am absolutely thrilled to be your moderator for this discussion. I mean, as you guys hear pretty regularly, I'm always pretty happy to be here with you all. But today's topic feels especially interesting because we're looking at something that is just front and center for most of us and in our lives, especially more and more these days, and that's end user computing. Over the last years, virtual desktops and desktops as a service, or DaaS, have become an important part of our IT infrastructure and environments. There's a lot of time and attention paid to accessibility, usability, and functionality of these solutions, as there should be. But today we're zooming in on one particular and incredibly important aspect of desktop as a service, and that's protection and recovery. If we're being honest, there is a good chance that many of your organizations are leaving your Citrix DaaS workloads either unprotected or maybe underprotected. And that could result in some pretty big disruption and extended downtime if you're faced with a disaster incident. But hey, I have some good news for you all, because in today's session, we're going to be chatting with a top industry expert from Nutanix who's here to walk us through an exciting solution from Nutanix and Citrix that will help you back up critical data, protection applications, and survive disasters. See what I said? I'm excited. This is going to be an absolutely great day. And there is so much to cover here. I really don't want to take any time away from the discussion we're going to get into. So I'm just going to zip through a few of the important housekeeping points, and then we'll get us on our way. Okay, so here we are. And first, I want to draw your attention to the questions section in your webinar console. So there's kind of two things we're going to look at this morning here. One is the questions and one is the handouts. But let's start in the questions section. So the absolute best part of a webinar like this one here is the chance to ask questions directly of an expert like we have with us today. And I know that this session is going to get all your inquisitive minds fired right up, so make sure to get those questions in. And I do want to remind you that if we are unable to get to your question in our live session, don't worry, because the Nutanix team will be following up with you after the event. A quick reminder that the questions console is also a great way to say hi to your friends in the Actual Tech Media community. I've seen some great hellos coming in from all over, so please do keep those coming. It's also a great place to reach out. Let us know if you do have any technical issues that come up during the session. Knock on wood, of course, but sometimes those little tech gremlins sneak in. So if anything's going wrong with your webinar today, I do want to remind you that a browser refresh is going to clear most of those gremlins out. But if you do need to get in touch with us, shoot us a message over that questions box, and the Actual Tech Media team will be there to help you out. So I mentioned that there was two kind of tabs there. One was that questions tab, we talked about that, and the other one is the handouts tab. So click into the handouts tab right now. Take a look there, because there's some really exciting content to go along with our webinar today. There's also a link there to set up a Nutanix test drive. So please do go check that out after the webinar. In fact, right now, click on that link, open it up in a new tab, and save that for later, because I promise you that today's expert speaker is going to get you all fired up to learn more when we wrap. So you're going to want that tab open. So get that ready now. And in the handouts tab, you can also see a link to the Gorilla Guide Book Club, the Actual Tech Media webinar calendar. So just lots of great stuff. Be sure to go and explore that. And hey, it's not just awesome content we're giving away today. I can tell some of you have already seen that little prize giveaway icon. We will be giving away a $300 Visa gift card as a prize drawing. We're going to do that at the end of our webinar. I do want to remind you that you need to be in live attendance at the webinar today to qualify for the prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you're saying to yourself, sounds lovely, Jess, but I don't know what those are, no problem. Click on over to that handy dandy handouts tab, scroll on down to the bottom, and you can find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, I mentioned earlier how much we love getting your questions. We really, really do. We want those technical questions. So we've also added an extra incentive for you. So at the end of the webinar today, we are going to look at all the questions asked, and we will choose the very best question from the whole group, and we will send them a $50 Visa gift card as a thank you for being awesome. Now, obviously, you do need to be here live in order to ask a question, so we don't really need to mention that. But I do want to remind you that it does not matter if we read your question out loud during the discussion or not. So even if we don't get to your question in the live Q&A, you're still entered to win that. So make sure to stretch out those fingers, do it right now, get all woken up and ready to go, and get those questions in. All right, folks. Well, that's it. I told you I was going to keep it short and sweet, and I meant it. And now it is time to start our awesome webinar. I am so excited to introduce you all to our expert speaker today. He is both fascinating and a ton of fun, which is a great combo. So let's bring Sean in here with us now. All right, folks, very happy. Sean Donahue, Senior Solutions Marketing Manager at Nutanix and proud owner of several cloud-themed shirts. So welcome, Sean. I know you have a lot of exciting content to cover with our audience, so I'm going to hand the mic on over to you.
Well, and I'll take the mic from you, Jess. Thank you very much for that wonderful intro, short and sweet. That's how people describe me all the time. And I'm thrilled to be here with you today. And I really want to extend my appreciation to you for taking time out of your busy calendars on a Friday afternoon or Friday morning to attend a webinar with me today. I really do value your time and I appreciate that. So pull up a chair, grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a juice with a boost, whatever it happens to be. And we're going to talk about Citrix DaaS, disaster recovery with Nutanix. And I want to tell you right off the bat, I want to rename this slide. I want to rename this presentation because disaster recovery implies such a negative connotation that a disaster has occurred and we have to recover from it. But it actually could be business continuity as well. How do you keep the lights on? How do you keep the business up and running in any type of situation? Now, when we think disaster, we're normally thinking the building catches on fire, earthquakes happen, tornadoes happen, floods happen, hurricanes, you name it. Some physical or natural or man-made disaster has occurred that wipes us out, but it could be business continuity. And we've really learned that a lot over the past 2 years, that business continuity is tantamount to disaster recovery. How do we keep the business running when some sort of anomaly, something that we hadn't planned on, happens or changes our model of operation? And that's what we want to talk about here today, is how do you keep going? How do you keep business on the rails when some sort of an event happens? Okay, we're going to get into it. I am obligated. Jess has made me state an agenda. So I'm looking at the agenda. We got 5 topics here. I'm looking at the agenda. This is kind of like the meal plan my nutritionist puts together for me. It sounds good. It looks good on paper. But am I really going to stick with it? I don't know about that. If I see something sweet and delicious and something that looks interesting, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to bring it up. But we're going to try to stick to the agenda as much as possible. We're going to talk about, of course, the current state of EUC. What the heck is EUC? What is it as a term? And what does it really mean? Of course, we're going to look at the Citrix and Nutanix partnership beyond the marketing level. And no offense to my marketing people out there, we're going to look at what it really means and what the effort and investments are to it. And then how Nutanix integrates with Citrix, because let's face it, you have a lot of investments in Citrix, and you've been running Citrix under many names over the past several, maybe even decades for some of you. I know, and I'm going to cut this out of the film, but I've been dabbling and working with the Citrix world since, I would say, 1998, 1999, somewhere around there. If any of you go back that far, and actually put into the questions, what was that first version of Citrix that you started working with? What was it called? Let's see. Test your memory, test your recall, and how long do you go back with Citrix? So what are those integrations that we are looking at? And then, of course, we're going to look at Citrix DaaS. That's their desktops as a service, disaster recovery using Nutanix, and then why Nutanix? Of course, we're going to answer that age-old question, why Nutanix? So let's get started right off the bat. What is end user computing, and what do we mean when we say EUC? And I'm going to say that it could actually be called a lot of things. We could call it digital employee experience. End user compute really takes on a different meaning to me because it's an umbrella term for all the products that touch the employee or the end user itself. Now, back in my day, the term end user was really referring to those outside of the IT world. But even in IT, we are users of the technology. So it's really the digital employee experience that we're talking about today. Now, you don't offend me with this umbrella term. You don't offend me if you call it VDI, your virtual desktop infrastructure. That was spinning up a virtual machine, generally on-prem in your data center, generally a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 VM to 1 user on a shared hosted desktop server environment. And VDI, again, is also a umbrella term. Desktop as a service, generally a hosted service. And now we're moving into more of a public cloud connotation. But DaaS could be a managed service provider. DaaS could be a private cloud. And it is serving up the desktop, again, on a hosted environment to the employees that they access. And we can get into and we can dive into the differences between named and pooled desktops and all the different flavors of hosted desktops we have. But again, it's an umbrella term for all the products touching an end user, all of those pieces of technology that they may use to get their jobs done. And of course, MDM, mobile device management, can also become part of that. I want this graphic, my dream graphic for this slide is an umbrella with a person, employee under the umbrella that shows them accessing all of their needs for their daily work style, their workplace in a multiple of devices. Could be phones, could be tablets, could be laptops, could be desktops, physical desktops. Anybody remember those? And all under the umbrella of employee experience, end user computing. That is the question. How do you provide a great experience to those employees, regardless, as we say in Boston, regardless of what device or where they are and what network they happen to be coming in from? Okay, what's the future of EUC? Well, let's look at this diagram a couple of ways. First, on the left-hand side of the diagram, we've got the on-prem EUC. This is your traditional hosted desktop VDI environment in your data center, locked in your Halon protected windowed area. Used to be in the basement if you have been around that long. And then we're moving to everything in a public cloud. But let's go back to the on-prem for a second. It was probably around 2010, 2009, somewhere around there. All the VDI vendors were saying it's the year of VDI. This is the year of VDI. And VDI was for every user, every use case, and every situation. And everything was going to be VDI. And that didn't actually work out that well. And it's always been the year of VDI. And then we get cloud. And now the vendors were saying, well, everything's cloud. It's the year of cloud. Every workload in the cloud. Every employee is going to be accessing their workloads from the cloud at every situation. Every use case will be cloud. And again, it not necessarily is that case. So we're diving into the middle area here where EUC is kind of a hybrid model. You use the on-prem resources for those workloads that make sense for those situations and those employees. And then you use cloud-based resources for those workloads and situations that make sense for those employees at that time. So we're really trending to the middle ground here with hybrid EUC or hybrid cloud, if you will. And I love this little note here, this industry trend shifting center. And over time, the future of EUC is hybrid. 45% of EUC workloads are already hybrid. So the trend is hybrid. You're probably seeing it at work yourself. I know that we're seeing it all the time as well. But I remember that it was the year of VDI, and it was the year of cloud, and really the magic spot, that magic spot is in the center where that hybrid environment lives. Now, if you've been struggling with EUC, if you've been looking at EUC for some time, then you know that there have been some challenges in rolling out your end user compute models. So we have long deployment times. Do you remember the days when you used to actually plan 3 and 5 years out? And the acquisition time to get the hardware that you needed to support your project took months of spec sizing and delivery of the hardware itself. And then don't forget the setup, the testing, and the rolling out of those projects. I will tell you that I was involved in a project, and I can't say the name of the customer. But it was a virtualization space, let's say that, and you just kind of get away with that. The project itself, we were on-prem with that customer, scoping, sizing, and conducting the project itself for more than 18 months before we ever let users outside the test group into this environment. That's the long deployment times we're talking about. And I know you're sitting there saying, oh, 18 months is nothing. I can top that story. I bet you can, because those deployment times took forever to spin up those new resources. And then, of course, those large upfront investments. You had to buy the hardware upfront, and that's what I mean about the 3 to 5 year planning models, and figuring out how much space, storage, and capacity and compute would my users need, figuring out what types of employees they were by the roles that they played at the company was just crazy, crazy, crazy. And then, of course, that limited scalability. So we add employees to this new compute model, virtualization, whatever it happened to be, and we were running into the boundaries of the physical constraints of the data center. And if you imagine it, you're looking at your office building and you're pretending that you're adding floor upon floor upon floor. Maybe it's employees, maybe it's seasonal employees, but it's also rack upon rack upon rack in the data center. And we were cobbling together network, storage, and compute to get this solution to scale out. Now, we all have heard about Moore's Law, which is the idea of doubling speed, for lack of a better word, every 2 years. And Moore's Law has, been applied to computers, and, we can be a little flexible with the idea. But have we ever heard of Amdahl's Law or Amdahl's argument, which is the idea that the more resources you add to something, let's say it's compute in a certain scenario, then the actual gains you get start to plateau, and you're not getting that scalability of the one-to-one, or a linear scalability, if I could use that term. You're really plateauing out. You're really getting to the limits of what you can get or squeeze out of that capacity. All of this to say that at the end of the day, what did we end up with? Unhappy users. And I know, I've been in the industry long enough to know that we didn't care about the users. The users got the beige box on their desk, and that's all they got, and they didn't use anything else, and we weren't really interested in what their experience was. Could they use it? Yes, good, done. My job here is done. Now it really is about the user, the commodity, the consumerization of IT, because employees are used to the speed, the agility, and the flexibility in their own compute scenarios, that they expect that in a corporate environment. So an unhappy user, or CSAT score, say that 10 times fast, has actually become something we're interested in and we want to make sure that we maintain. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide the users with the compute experience that they expect and that they can be productive with, regardless of their location, the device, the network, whatever it happens to be. Okay, now, how do we get there? That's that friction-free end user compute. We need to have these EUC solutions. We've learned about the future and how EUC is evolving. And based on those factors, the modern EUC solution should be friction-free. But what does that really mean? Well, first off, we need flexibility. And I know when you look at me, you think immediately, well, flexibility, there's somebody who's flexible. But what we're talking about is you need that flexibility across your hybrid multi-cloud infrastructure so that you could move workloads seamlessly between on-prem and public clouds. And that aspect becomes very important in the realm of disaster recovery and use cases, because I'm going to keep tying back to this, and I'm going to keep asking you to go down that memory lane with me. And do you remember actually having racks of compute, network, storage, everything just sitting there as a in-case solution and them never actually having to be used? So we want that versatility and flexibility for that disaster recovery that we're talking about. Second, security, always security. In fact, I'm going to switch that. Security is always top of mind. And we rush to scale. And when we rush to scale, especially in the past couple of years, when we rushed to scale, left a lot of companies vulnerable. And it was essential that those companies protected their data and comply with the local regulations. Now, I know we had a hard shift almost overnight to remote work models, and we some companies cobbled solutions together using existing stuff that they already had in the data center, and that left them vulnerable to not just malware, and spyware and viruses, but actual data theft, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to put security first and foremost. So I want you to mentally shift that box on the slide. Security is first and foremost. And then that user experience, that scale, that linear scaling with that consistent user experience. Because if the employee has a bad experience, what are they going to do? They're going to walk away. They're going to resort to shadow IT. They're not going to use what you're supplying them with anymore, because those days of giving them the beige box on their desk, like I said earlier, they get what they get and they get nothing more. Those days are gone. They will go outside of IT and they will start consuming their own devices, their own accessibility to get their job done. And then improve efficiency. Yeah, it needs to be deployed quickly, scale quickly, and scale down cost effectively. And I love this. I heard this recently, and I can't tell you who it is. So we'll just say it's just one of those, phrases that we heard off the cuff. When we talk future proofing, you had 10. In some instances, 10 hand-me-down hosts in a second data center, but they insisted they were building the business of the future. And one of the requirements was to be able to deploy any technology, past, present, and think about this, anything that hadn't been invented yet. And when we get locked into data center constraints, by Boston comes out strong on that one, data center constraints, then we can't keep it future proof. And I know future proof is one of those marketing terms that we're exhausted by, and we've heard it left and right. And 6 ways to Sunday. But truly, you've got to plan on the technology and the applications that haven't even been invented yet. So, what are we talking about? The use case that we want to look at here is Citrix DaaS, that's Desktops as a Service, okay? Disaster recovery, business continuity, so DRBC on a public cloud is really where we want to get into. And I am legally obligated, Jess told me at the front of this webinar, I'm legally obligated to cover the marketing slide, Powering the Future of EUC. So here it is. This is a reading from the good book of Partners, chapter 20, verse 21. Citrix, Nutanix for Citrix, is a preferred partner for HCI, hyperconverged infrastructure, and hybrid multi-cloud solutions for their Citrix virtual apps and desktops, CVAD, or now as we call it, DaaS. And Nutanix, from the Nutanix side, Citrix is the preferred partner for enterprise end user computing solutions on the Nutanix cloud platform. That is wonderful marketing stuff, but what does it really mean to you? I'm not really interested. Again, no offense to my marketing friends out there. Love you all. Without you, I wouldn't get steak dinners and swag and tchotchkes and all the other good stuff that comes out of marketing. What this really boils down to for us is this lead bullet item here. I want to make sure that you take note of that. The product teams will partner for validation and interoperability of new features. Yes, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where the investment comes from. Product teams, those engineering folks, or as we say in Boston again, those wicked smart people are the ones getting together. I'm not going to tell you how often they get together, but they're getting together to actually co-dev and validate solutions between Nutanix and Citrix. And this just in, can I disclose it? Yeah, late breaking news published on the Citrix Ready website, published also on the Nutanix website, is a new joint co-validated design. So this is a CVD, a Citrix validated design, and an NVD, a Nutanix validated design that you can get your hands on today. 60 some odd pages of techie goodness about how to deploy Citrix DaaS on Nutanix and what they've done specifically, architected the whole scheme, the whole magic behind it. And yes, I do want to point out the second bullet too, that the customer support teams do partner to handle customer issues resolutions quickly. So they actually do talk to each other from a support level and make sure that they're copied in on emails to make sure that the customer, if there was ever an issue, the customer is resolved, the issue is resolved for them. And then, yeah, Nutanix actually, there's something called a CTP. If you're a CTP, raise your hand. That's the Citrix Technical Professional. And that's kind of like a Microsoft MVP. And we do employ the most CTPs out of anyone out there. So there you go. There's some goodness right there. But let's get into this, because at the heart, we're into the heart now of providing you that high-performing EUC solution. We talk about flexibility, portability across that hybrid cloud infrastructure. Nutanix is the product that lays the foundation for its Nutanix clusters. Now, this is Nutanix Cloud Platform here, but with clusters, Citrix users can migrate virtual apps and desktops along with the user data across clouds with no retooling or refactoring. If you're looking at Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter right now, I want you to come back here for a second, because we just mentioned that you can move across your apps and desktops and the user data across clouds with no retooling or refactoring. That's been a big holdback for a lot of people in this cloud journey. This is a great advantage to all of this, is the unification of that EUC management, regardless of location, from on-prem to your cloud. In this situation here, we're calling out AWS, could be Azure soon. I want you to actually mentally draw a third column here that is Azure. So basically, Nutanix Cloud Platform on AWS or Azure soon situates the complete Nutanix hyper-converged infrastructure, that's your HCI stack, directly on Amazon EC2. That's that elastic cloud compute bare metal. So talk about that seamless capability. That bare metal instance runs the controller VM and AHV is your hypervisor, just like any on-prem Nutanix deployment. Yeah, just like any on-prem Nutanix deployment using that elastic networking interface capability to connect to the network. And again, the VMs don't require any additional configuration to access AWS services or other EC2 instances. It is essentially the Nutanix clusters provides that bridge between your private cloud and your public cloud. So if I had a drawing capability here, I would mentally be drawing a bridge, a little bridge between left column, right column, and then over in that third column that you mentally drew out here yourself, because that's what the Nutanix clusters provides, is that bridge for you. Now, but I hear what you're saying. I do. I hear what you're saying. And this comes from 20 years of teaching technology, starting back with, you ready for this as a trip down memory lane? Novell NetWare. How many people remember Novell NetWare? Put it in the question module, the little question module, chat module that we have. Where was I going with this? Because it's over those years that I've developed the sixth sense, where I can tell what questions are on the top of people's minds without them asking it. The number one question on the top of everybody's mind here today is his shirt supposed to be that tight? And the answer to that one is no. That just comes with the pandemic and sitting down all day. The number two question on the top of everybody's mind here today is, I've got a big investment in Citrix. Tell me that Nutanix and Citrix integrate together. And that's what I'm here to tell you, that Nutanix and Citrix do integrate co-developed plugins with Citrix Studio so that you can configure and manage your deployments. That's your MCS, that's your machine creation services for your machine catalogs using snapshots and master images for Nutanix or with Nutanix. Citrix Director, that's your performance and statistics for the AHV, is the Acropolis hypervisor for Nutanix. That includes your IOPS and IO. PVS, that's streaming your images using the master image on Nutanix as well. And then Citrix Cloud is that full Nutanix Prism integration for combined services with that one-click deployment. So this is your investment in knowing the Citrix technology paying off, because it is going to be seamless whether you're on-prem or leveraging Citrix DaaS and Nutanix in the cloud. Okay, now it is important, and I do want to emphasize this point. So I'm gonna really emphasize and drill this down. We're doing okay for time. So I really want to emphasize this point. It's important to understand how Citrix DaaS is different from a traditional on-prem environment or on-prem management. In the on-prem model, the software that the customer installed, maintained, patched, and upgraded was they themselves. They did it themselves. Upgrades could be cumbersome and multiple dependencies, leading to complexity and operational headaches. Now with this cloud-hosted environment, and I know you've heard the term Citrix Cloud a lot, so that's why I want to dive into this. With Citrix Cloud, that cloud-hosted solution, the management is offloaded as a service to the cloud. It's hosted, in this case, by Citrix, and delivering EUC management as a service. The customer no longer installs, maintains, they simply operate. And Citrix now is responsible for all aspects of keeping it up and running. Another advantage is no more patches, no more upgrades. The solution is evergreen. But it's not like they're putting your entire Citrix environment under their control. You still own it. You still manage it. You still manage it. Here is that, again, Nutanix Cloud Platform as that bridge between your private cloud over here in blue and your public cloud over here in green. You have your cloud connectors, blue, going to the management plane up above in green. You have your cloud connectors in green going to your management plane again in green. So what is Citrix actually controlling, managing, and keeping evergreen for you? How about the license manager? How about the Citrix databases? How about those delivery controllers? How about the config and monitoring? But everything else is still yours, because let's face it, at the end of the day, patching is not sexy. It's necessary. So let Citrix take over the patching and routine maintenance of their environment for you with Citrix Cloud. It is not, and I really want to emphasize this, it is not their own separate cloud environment tantamount or similar to GCP, AWS, or Azure. It is just their management components that they're hosting up in the management plane and maintaining for you. Okay. Citrix on Nutanix clusters. It's getting about time for that juice with a boost. But Citrix on Nutanix clusters. With Nutanix clusters, the Citrix solutions become on-demand and portable. Nutanix clusters on your cloud is Citrix Ready certified and extends the on-prem to the cloud using Nutanix Cloud Platform with no changes to look and feel, while leveraging existing plugins. So that's a lot to unwrap right there. First and foremost, same look and feel while leveraging your existing Citrix plugins. You're not going to have to relearn from the start to manage your Citrix and Nutanix environments. This Citrix Ready bullet right here, that is key. That's not just a little sticker. That's not just a participation trophy, if you will, that Citrix hands out to people. That means that Nutanix clusters has gone through a validation certification process with Citrix to verify that they actually work and support and go flawlessly for you. I have worked with companies that have tried to get that Citrix Ready certification and not been able to. So there actually is some gravitas behind that Citrix Ready certification. Let's look at Citrix workload use cases on Nutanix clusters. What a great title for a slide. Nah, not. But this is what my point is behind this slide. We're talking business continuity today. Quickly build out DR sites in any cloud region. Don't forget, we want to emphasize that you're bursting to the cloud, you're recovering to the cloud, but that doesn't mean you're not going back on-prem. It is that two-way street that we're enabling and we're talking about here to get through that disaster. If Jess would allow me to come back, I want to come back and talk about at a future one, this on-demand elasticity, this rapidity of scale, and also everybody forgets to talk about the migration and testing of your in-house developed applications and the effort involved in that. And how do the developers take the in-house applications and actually test them against production-like environments before they actually deploy them out into the wild? Do they just run roughshod and deploy them out at will? Or do they actually go through a testing environment? This is a great, great, great use case for Citrix workloads on Nutanix clusters. Is awesome. But we're talking about business continuity today. Like I said, if I can convince Jess to let me back, we'll talk about some of the other ones. So why Citrix DaaS, disaster recovery, is trending to the public cloud. Remote workforce productivity. Sure, we get that. We've been talking about that. We've got people accessing our workloads from everywhere at scale and protected. How about that pilot light DR? Did we talk about this? Do you remember the days of actually maintaining a separate physical location in the event that your office building, your primary office building, became unusable? And we can talk about the origins of this, but I was working closely with a lot of FinServ companies when their buildings and facilities were inoperable, and they had separate, and as a result of that, they had to create separate standby facilities. The entire office was duplicated and replicated to a separate standby facility that if they needed to, they could switch to on the fly. That cost and that overhead, that talk about CapEx and OpEx in maintaining and running one of those facilities for a worst case scenario. Now we can do this in the cloud seamlessly and just burst up to it in the event that we actually needed it. And that's the second bullet right here, this bullet down here. No on-prem or secondary DC data center is required anymore. That duplicity, that redundancy, and you remember keeping racks and racks and shelves of hardware that never actually got used, but they were there in case you needed it. And then that cloud, and a lot of you have this mandate intact that you have to be cloud ready, cloud first, and everything that you're acquiring today has to be cloud first, and that's the economies of scale we're going to talk about. And I'm about to show you a situation where you keep the minimum environment active or replicating in a cloud environment. We'll talk AWS for the sake of argument, and then you burst to it as it's actually needed, but you don't keep it there unused forever and a day. Okay, so we've talked a lot. We've diced up the vegetables, we've got the seasoning, and we're ready to put it all together in the pot. And what do we make in a pot? Maybe, I don't know, I like to say souffle, but I know that's not how you make a souffle. It's probably how you make a soup, but I don't like the metaphor. So you're on your own for that metaphor. I'm going to leave you with half a metaphor there. So, but here's how it all comes together. With Citrix DaaS, Citrix administers the management services and components along with end user access to the services in the Citrix cloud. Remember, we said it's just those management components in the Citrix cloud that they're keeping evergreen for you. Administrators manage the authentication and workload components in resource locations, and Nutanix AHV is the production resource location, and Nutanix clusters on your cloud, in this case AWS, is the disaster recovery location. And now Nutanix Prism is your central single web console for monitoring and managing multiple clusters. And with the addition of Nutanix Disaster Recovery, Prism Central also includes the protection policies and recovery plans to protect data for AHV, ESXi, whatever your hypervisor of choice happens to be. And now you can apply orchestration policies from a central location, ensuring that consistency across all your sites and clusters. I love the idea of a fine Viennese waltz. It's just fluid and it's flowing, and it's a beautiful thing that can have automatic rollover and balance to disaster recoveries when absolutely needed. Because Prism Central uses availability zones to manage these protection policies and recovery plans. And Nutanix defines an availability zone as a logical management boundary for all the clusters that one Prism Central instance manages, regardless of whether those clusters are deployed in the cloud, like over here on the right, the disaster recovery, that could be inferred as the cloud, or your production environment on premises. And there's your bridge between them. That Citrix cloud floating above, that's what we talked about with Citrix managing those resources for you. Okay. Another advantage, here we go, of the Elastic Disaster Recovery. This is your standard DR. This is what we talked about, but now we're putting it in the lens of the cloud itself is that improved TCO. Let's throw the marketing term out, total cost of ownership. Your standard DR process is that 1-for-1 requirement. Same number of nodes on your DR site as they are on your on-prem site. This is what I mean, but now in the cloud, you've got duplicity across everything in the event that you actually need it. But what we want to talk about is that the Nutanix in a cloud environment for elastic DR, the Nutanix rules still apply. You need a minimum of 3 nodes. There they are right there. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. Minimum of 3 nodes in the cluster to get started. And then if you have enough storage capacity, you can keep accepting those replications from the on-prem environment, not worry about CPU and memory constraints. And then you could also use your on-prem AHV supported backup software to back up directly to, let's say, S3 in this case. Then when you have an outage, this is where it gets exciting, you could quickly, boom, you could quickly build the Nutanix cluster in your cloud and start restoring the data to that cluster. And now you've elastically recovered to your disaster. Okay, bring it home. Let's wrap it up. I'm going to build out the slide. Okay, so in summary, let's wrap it up. Let's bring it home. Using your application granular snapshots. And I want to get in, because this is something that we don't have time for today, but I want to get into Citrix files, Citrix unified storage, and how it actually creates, and the idea, the concept of that granular snapshot and recovery, that policy-based protection, asynchronous multi-site replication, that centralized prism management, and with Nutanix cloud clusters on, again, we'll say AWS in this argument here, but let's just say your cloud. The recovery solution uses the same skills as the on-prem Nutanix to provide the protection in the cloud and the flexibility to move back on-prem when you're ready. So when the disaster is over, you get the all clear signal, you can move back seamlessly. Those types of fluidity did not exist before. And with Citrix DaaS on clusters, Nutanix clusters, in your cloud, makes your disaster recovery plan robust without sacrificing that ease of use and ability to expand your cluster just before the failover, and then purchasing and maintaining nodes ahead of time. Okay. Now, don't just take it from me. And I know our back is getting against the wall, but look at the success stories that we have with Citrix on Nutanix. If you didn't tune in last week, there was a webinar with Delaware Valley Community Health. It was phenomenal. I wasn't hosting the webinar. It was with the customer and 2 of our wicked smart people, Jarian and Alan, who works for Citrix, interviewing the customer from Delaware Valley. It was one of the best webinars I've had the experience of viewing. But then also, hey, JetBlue, great partnership, great use case. You can get into that as well. I'm JetBlue Mosaic, so of course I'm going to mention JetBlue, and I love their blue potato chips, so why wouldn't I mention JetBlue? But I'm legally obligated, according to the marketing people, to tell you that Nutanix has been around for 10 plus years, proverbially creating the space of hyper-converged infrastructure, thousands of customers, and millions of end users. In this case, I will accept the term end user. I want to point you to a couple of things. The Forrester total economic impact of Nutanix for EUC, end user computing. This is one of my favorite reads that I have. So it's telling you 164% ROI in under 6 months payback. That's amazing. 3-year ROI study. I just recently reread this again, and it is chock full of information. look at the savings over 3 years versus the cost of 8 million, 21 million in savings, thousands of hours saved in operation. I'll tell you, in my book stand next to my chair in my living room, I have Stephen King, I have John Grisham, I have Jane Eyre, and I have the Forrester Total Economic Impact of Nutanix in EUC. It is just that gripping of a read. And I would suggest all of you get your hands on it because it is that good. And now Sarah has required me to cover and tell you the call to action, the CTA, as they like to say in the marketing world. This test drive, again, is phenomenal. It leads you through every step of the way by the hand. The person who made it, I'm not going to embarrass them, mastering this test drive. It is a great way to extend your Citrix desktops to your cloud with Nutanix cloud clusters. It is so straightforward and so easy. Even a marketing person can do it. Again, no offense to the marketing people. Love you all, okay? But it is great, great, great information. But I'm also going to go off script, Sarah, and I'm going to encourage you to download that new co-validated design, that CVD, NVD, Citrix Validated Design, Nutanix Validated Design. It is available on the Citrix Ready website for you. You can get your hands on it there. You can also get it by going to the Nutanix website, nutanix.com/EUC, and you can get your hands on that validated design as well. And then also, since you're such a fan of videos, because you're here watching this one here, I'm going to point you to the Nutanix University on YouTube. Chock full of videos, amazing video content on everything you know and need to know for Nutanix. Okay, I know our back's against the wall, and I apologize for that. And again, I do want to thank you for attending this webinar today. You made it through with me. Now it's time. Grab your Yeti. No one knows what's in your Yeti. Only the Yeti knows. And take a sip of your juice with a boost and call it a weekend, an early start to the weekend. I see Jess is back in the studio, and I've never been more excited to see her in my life. This has been great, great fun. And Jess, I know I didn't leave a lot of time for questions, and I apologize. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa.
That's all right, Sean. We covered a lot. We were doing Viennese waltzes. We were making souffles. We were working on our Boston accents. I mean, what a day. We got our juices with the boosters here. We're
the full webinar.
It's been a time. You might have given Sarah a heart attack in the back end when you said you were going off script, but that was very well done.
She'll be all right. She'll forgive me.
She'll survive. Yeah. Well, I think I'm speaking on behalf of our audience when I say that was both fascinating and fun as promised. Thank you so much, Sean. And the great news is that we're not done yet because we have a few questions that we want to get to. I want to thank everyone who did ask a question today. Lots of great stuff coming in. So let's jump in because as Sean mentioned, we're a little short on time. So I want to make sure we can get through a few of these.
Hold on. I had mentioned a Viennese waltz.
You did.
Right. But I see that we have an attendee from Argentina. So it would be more appropriate that we danced an Argentinian waltz. And I appreciate them being here and tuning in.
I feel very good about that cultural adjustment. And for anyone in Vienna, please feel free to continue Viennese waltzing in the background.
I did suggest, and I don't mean to step on your toes either, but I have a great question in that I wanted to address. And I gotta say, it's my show. It's my show. I get to do what I want, right?
I'm just gonna hang out. I got it.
Yeah, hey. A great question came in. Let's say this was from Allie in Austin, and I want to call this out, because Allie asked, "What's the difference?" And if you have questions after this, you ready for this? Just send them to me on Twitter @Shondo40, and I'd love to interact and hear from you over there as well, even after our time is up here. But Allie asked, XenApp, Zen Desktop, what's the difference between, did we have anybody reply as to what versions of Citrix they started out with? So I'm going to just say this. So Citrix is no stranger and not shy about renaming their products. I mean, since I've been around, it started with WinView, WinFrame, MetaFrame, presentation server, XenApp, Zen Desktop. So a lot of people know it as XenApp, Zen Desktop. But now it's kind of the umbrella term is Citrix DaaS, which is Desktop as a Service. You don't offend me if you say Citrix DaaS and you mean an on-prem deployment of what was known as XenApp and Zen Desktop. We're all friends here. You can call it what you want, but that's kind of the evolution. So when I say Citrix DaaS, it kind of is encompassing all of those names that you may be familiar with. Okay, Jeff, I promised I wasn't going to step on your toes, but I did.
Oh, I have the mic now, is that?
Yeah, good. No, I got enough. I'm just kidding.
Well, I do want to tell you, Sean, while you were chatting there, we got a lot of high fives that came in. Mike and Cheryl and a few others here. Dennis, Andre, everyone chiming in to say how much they enjoyed your chat. So clearly you have some fans out there. Well done.
I appreciate the virtual high fives.
Yes, exactly.
Because the physical high fives never work out for me. They usually end up on my face. So I'm not sure if they really intended on giving me a high five or they just were smacking me in the face.
Interesting. We'll leave that to the audience to decide. We did have a question about getting a white paper on Citrix DaaS, and I want to address that really quickly. If you do click on the Nutanix link, that'll get you started at their website. But Sean, do you want to direct Dennis here to anything in particular?
There are some amazing white papers that are available on citrix.com/EUC. The one, I can't name a favorite. That's like naming a favorite child, to be honest with you. And I actually can do that easier than I can name my favorite white paper. You know who I'm talking about.
Is it the one who brought you coffee earlier? That's a great kid.
Definitely, he ranks up there, that's for sure. There was a question that came in. Edgar, I'm going to take your question and I'm going to format it as a downtime for updates to the Citrix environment. And that's the beautiful thing about Citrix managing and keeping evergreen and patching and maintaining your environment, because you're used to, when you do it yourself, you're used to having to take it down and actually patch it and upgrade it. Like I said, patching is not sexy. So we let Citrix take care of it. And because they're maintaining it and managing it themselves, you shouldn't actually experience any downtime while they're patching their components in Citrix Cloud. So, and I know I put a clock here like I promised you I would, and I know that we're out of time, Jess.
Well, let's sneak in one more, because I think that was a good one from Edgar. And I just want to ask one more question. With Citrix Cloud, am I giving up all management of my DaaS environments to a vendor?
That's a great question, because that can be a lot of trepidation about that, because for years, 30 of them, if we were to be honest, and I know what you're saying, Jess, you're saying 30 years in this industry, impossible, because you couldn't, you're not even that old. I got into this environment in this industry when I was 2. I was a child prodigy in the EUC space. No, you're not giving up. That's the beautiful thing about it, because I've owned my infrastructure forever and a day. When I go with Citrix Cloud and allow them to maintain and manage, I'm still controlling my virtual machines. I'm still managing and maintaining my data. It's all mine, because I know that there could be questions and concerns about GDPR and HIPAA and other data compliancy. Where are my compliance people at? But even with Citrix Cloud, you're not giving up that control. You're not giving up that management. You're giving up, or you're not giving up, but you're letting Citrix manage the parts of the Citrix environment, licensing, database managing, monitoring, things like that, that that really were, tedious, mundane, everyday tasks that we had to keep up to date for our on-prem environment. So that's why I'm not overly, and I'm a control freak. I'll admit it right here with this group. We're all in the conclave. I'm a control freak. I like to keep, my hands on my stuff. And even I'm comfortable in a Citrix cloud environment and allowing them to manage and update those components for me. It's like going to Jiffy Lube and getting an oil change. I'm all right with them doing that. I don't get my hands dirty on that stuff.
Well, there you go. If Sean can do it, you can too. That's the takeaway. I really wish we could keep going with this, Sean, because we still have so many great questions that we have not gotten to. I want to wrap with sort of two quick thoughts. One is, if you have one message or one next step, one thing that everyone here either does or leaves thinking about, what would you want that to be?
Oh, that's to me?
Yes, that's to you, Sean. Yeah.
In all sincerity, that's the test drive. If I could encourage everybody to just go out, take a look, roll up your sleeves, and it really, you're running it, you're getting the simulation of it, you're getting the experience of it, but you're not actually having to instantiate the entire environment on-prem. It is such a seamless experience that, take a taste, get your taste. What am I trying to think? Get your lips wet with it. I'm forgetting the saying, but yeah, the test drive. There you go. I don't know.
We're
too much Yeti time.
We're mixing metaphors left, right, and center in here. So get your lips wet, get a test drive, whatever, make a souffle, make a soup, whatever it is. But be wicked smart and regardless. Well, Sean, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. You said that it's my call if you get to come back again. I think I speak on behalf of the audience when I say, please do. Let's do this again soon. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, Sean. Thank you so much.
All right, Jess, have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
What a guy. Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm feeling very Friday vibes and smiley now. And enjoying my coffee, which is not juice with a boost. I wish it was now. But I do want to thank all of you for joining us here. And certainly on behalf of Actual Tech Media, I really want to thank the Nutanix team and Sean. That was absolutely wonderful. Now, I know you guys can all see up on the webinar here or on the screen here that it is time for a prize giveaway. I'm sure you're impatiently waiting. So let me make sure we get to that. So our winner of a $300 Visa gift card, $300 Visa gift card, is Kevin Kastelik of Wisconsin. Good people out there in Wisconsin. Kevin Kastelik of Wisconsin, you have won a $300 Visa gift card. And as always, we will be in touch with you. And I do want to remind you that the winner of our best question asked, we will follow up with you because we'll review all the questions. And all those questions are going to go to Sean and the Nutanix team. So they will get a chance to review all of those questions asked. So don't worry, I know there was a lot that we didn't get to today, and you will hear back from Sean. He also mentioned his Twitter handle, so please do follow up with him there. And if you haven't already, I feel like we've said it 100 times, but head on over to that Handouts tab, click on that Nutanix test drive. As Sean said, whatever metaphor you want to use, it is the best way to get started. It's the best way to really see if this is a solution that's going to work for you, and I'm sure that it will, so please do go click on that and check it out. Well, again, on behalf of Actual Tech Media and myself, I want to thank Nutanix. I want to thank Sean. Nothing like starting the Friday out on such a great note, learning lots of cool things. My brain is buzzing. And I'm ready to rock out into the weekend. I hope you are too. I do want to thank everyone in the audience out there who asked a question. Honestly, these things are so much fun, but they really depend on the energy that you all bring and then the participation that you all bring. So please do keep those coming, and high fives to everyone who participated in the webinar today. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you all, and I hope that we will see you again on a webinar soon. And until then, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.